the AHR Expo today, with all the different products for mechanical systems, and I figured I'd take this opportunity to meet with some industry experts. So today I have with me Egg Egg here to talk about geothermal. I'm really thinking about which way to do for an energy source for this new eco-friendly home, whether it be an air source or a ground source or even a boiler. I haven't really made that decision, but I know you're an expert on that. Maybe you can enlighten us a little bit what's involved with a geothermal system and what are the benefits?
I'd be pleased to, Dave. Now, I know you're an energy expert, so I'm going to try not to insult your intelligence when I tell you, like I like to tell everybody, if you don't know, geothermal air conditioners and heat pumps are the most efficient heating and cooling systems in the industry. That's a given. I understand you're a certified geothermal designer.
Yes, I am. I went through the course, and I really wanted to engulf and understand as much about pumps and what's involved in the loop field end of things.
Well, we'll get into that in just a minute. What I want to say is, having been in the field so long, most of the people I deal with already know that it's the most efficient heating and cooling system available. And with the low prices for natural gas, the heating isn't actually always as much of an energy savings as it was in the past with the prices of propane and higher prices. So when you get into the heating, if you've got natural gas, it's really hard to beat that. Now the cooling is always going to be good, and it depends on if you compare it with propane or heating oil or something. So be that as it may, geothermal is still overall the best heating and cooling system available. What I like to focus on is this. With a geothermal heating system, you don't have what you have with an air source where you have an outside unit and an inside unit, because you've got to have that condenser outside for your air conditioning system. So with a geothermal heat pump, your heating and cooling unit is all one piece in the house, as you know. It looks like an air handler, and you put it inside, and that does at least two things, if not more. Number one, it makes your outside environment quiet, because no matter how quiet a condenser is, it's still going to make noise, and you're going to hear it cycle on and cycle off. So it makes it more peaceful outside. Number two, having the equipment all indoors makes it weatherproof and makes it so that it will last longer.
The environment doesn't have an impact. Yeah, that is a big acid rain, all that other stuff, or near a beach, salt.
Right, exactly. And then on top of that, a heat pump, a geothermal heat pump, because it's all indoors, will last longer. Some people say 20, some people say 30 years. But here's the really cool thing. When it's time to replace it, which we all know equipment fails eventually, it's more like replacing a washing machine, because it's one piece of equipment that's hooked to two pipes and your ductwork. And you put it in, and it's not as big of a deal when you have an outside and an inside unit. So I like to focus on that. It's simplicity. The pipes, as you know, in the ground, they're polyethylene. They'll last a long time, a couple generations at least. So
now, I'm thinking about doing radiant, for the heating. So I was looking at a water-to-water unit, and then maybe do an air handler with a water coil in it to do my cooling. Do you do many of those? Or?
Absolutely. That is the best type of geothermal system, bar none, for a residence. If you go with a water-to-water unit, you have the heating source. You can pump heat to the radiant floor, and then you use what they call a fan coil unit, which is a type of air handler that uses water, as you know. It can receive chilled water, it can receive heated water, so you can have forced heat, you can have forced cool, but most people, like you know, are going to like that warmth on their feet. And it opens up the versatility to where you can heat any way you want, and you can cool from forced air. You could actually, if you had some of Taco's iWorks controls in there, you might even consider cooling your floor when it gets really hot in the middle of the summer. Radiant cooling is a possibility.
Yeah, as long as you operate above the dew point.
That's right. You don't want a wet floor. And that's what's cool about the iWorks control system. They have they have that mixing block control that makes sure the injection of the water is always above dew point.
Oh, that's awesome.
Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So it looks like there's a lot of opportunities in there. I know it's really efficient, especially on cooling, because it's easy to sink that, but what about heating? I live in Connecticut. Is that going to be a problem? Am I going to be able to heat my house?
You're going to be able to heat your house, and this is something I love to talk about that people don't really think about. They're thinking about, okay, geothermal heat from the earth, and I'll get to the point where I answer your question, but what the industry is really realizing is geothermal is really a solar energy technology, because every summer the earth is reheated and the ground holds that heat all summer. And in Connecticut, I think you're at about 50 degrees, down about 6-8 feet.
It's pretty stable at that.
Pretty stable at that. So what happens is all winter long, you're pulling that heat out. Now there is something called glide, which is you may be at 50, but by the end of the winter, you may be at 40, okay, around the loop. You've cooled it down. But guess what? When summer comes, that's your boost for summer, because now you got 40 degrees. Imagine the efficiency of air conditioning, and you're dumping heat in there, so you're rewarming the ground. It's like you're using the heat that you're putting into the ground from the winter to help heat your house the next, from the summer to help heat the next winter.
So like I explained, I've always put radiant. I'm worried about the indoor comfort. How would I do the loops in the ground? Would I do a well or a slinky, or what's the different ways to do it?
When we get to that point, you and I will take a look at your geology. Probably, and I don't pretend to know, because it might be different from one block to the next. If you have loose gravel, if you have sand, if you have, maybe you go down 10 feet and you have granite. I don't know what it is there.
There's a lot of ledge,
Yeah. And so depending on the type of lithology or geology you have, we might do a vertical closed loop system where we run the pipes down. We might do a horizontal slinky system. It's not as likely where you live. We might even do a pump where you pump, if you have a prolific aquifer, we might even pump water from the ground and re-inject it somewhere else into the ground where you're at. That's a lot more common than most people know. As a matter of fact, we're here in Florida at the AHR show. Most of the resorts and larger customers here pump water from the aquifer, and then they inject it a couple hundred yards away, and they don't even do loops.
And it goes right back into the aquifer, filtered through the
non-consumptive.
Oh, well, that's a good way. So not really impacting the environment. You know, the old term pump and dump, but as long as it's making it back to, and you're replacing it, well, then that's definitely a way to go.
Just borrowing it for a couple of seconds, right?
Well, that's awesome. Well, we're going to have to get together as the plan materializes. I'll give you some statistics, and maybe we can do some sizing and guessing, what tonnage or what type of equipment, and figure out what kind of soil conditions we are. Maybe do some test bores or something like that, and you can kind of make a decision on that. But that looks great.
I'll tell you what, Dave. I'll make a date with you. I'll bring my wife up, show her your property, and we'll talk about it, okay?
That's perfect.
All right.
Well, thank you, Jay. I really appreciate the information you supplied. That's great. Good insight. For anybody listening, there's some big takeaways you talk on there. And so it really makes it tough for me to make a decision on, what type of heat source or energy source to go with there. But that was great information. Again, thank you, Jay.